Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotara Siddha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotara Siddha Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Niti Namane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text number 19. Vivakshoho Mukataha Bhumnaha Vanihi Vak Vyahritam Tayoho Jale Cha Etasya Suchiram Nirodhaha Samajayata Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Vanirvagvyahritam Tayoho Vanirvagvyahritam Tayoho Jale Chaitasya Suchiram Jale Chaitasya Suchiram Nirodha Samajayata Nirodha Samajayata Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Vanirvagvyahritam Tayoho Jale Chaitasya Suchiram Nirodha Samajayata Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Vanirvagvyahritam Tayoho Jale Chaitasya Suchiram Nirodha Samajayata. Please repeat. Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno
Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Hanirvagvyahritam Tayoho Jale Chaitasya Suchiram Nirodha Samajayata
Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Vanirvagvyahritam Tayoho Chaitasya Suchiram Nirodha Samajayata Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Vanirvagvyahritam Tayoho Jale Chaitasya Suchiram Nirodha Samajayata. Matajis. Vivakshor Mukhato Bhumno Nirodha Samajayata. Okay. Vivakshoho, when there was a need to speak. Mukhataha, from the mouth. Bhumnaha, of the Supreme. Vanihi, fire or the controlling deity of fire. Vak, vibration. Vyahritam, speeches. Tayoho, by both. Jale, in the water. Cha, however. Etasya, of all these. Suchiram, a very, very long time. Nirodhaha, suspension. Samajayata, did continue. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When the Supreme desired to speak, speeches were vibrated from the mouth. Then the controlling deity fire was generated from the mouth. But when he was lying in the water, all these functions remained suspended. Purport. The peculiarity of the gradual development of the different senses is simultaneously supported by their controlling deities. It is to be understood, therefore, that the activities of the sense organs are controlled by the will of the Supreme. The senses are, so to speak, offering a license for the conditioned souls, who are to use them properly under the control of the controlling deity deputed by the Supreme Lord. One who violates such controlling regulations has to be punished by degradation to a lower status of life. Consider, for example, the tongue and its controlling deity, Varuna. The tongue is meant for eating, and men, animals, and birds each have their different tastes because of different licenses. The taste of human beings and that of the swine are not on the same level. The controlling deity, however, awards or certifies a particular type of body when the particular living entity develops a taste in terms of different modes of nature. If the human being develops taste without discrimination, as does the swine, then the controlling deity is certainly certified for the next term to award him the body of a swine. The swine accepts any kind of foodstuff, including stools, and a human being who has developed such indiscriminate taste must be prepared for a degraded life in the next life. Such a life is also God's grace, because the conditioned soul desired a body like that for perfectly tasting a particular type of foodstuff. If a man gets the body of a swine, it must be considered the grace of the Lord, because the Lord awards the facility. After death, the next body is offered by superior control, not blindly. A human being, therefore, must be on his guard as to what sort of body he is going to have in the next life. An irresponsible life of indiscrimination is risky, and that is the declaration of all scriptures. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasandubi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nitinamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vagisha yasya vadane lakshmi yasya chavaksasi yasyaste hridaye sambit tam nrsimham ham bhaje. Yasya devi parabhaktir yata tevi tatagaro tasya te katitahyata prakashante mahatmanaha. Vivakshor mukato bhumno vanir vag vyahritam tayoho jale chaitasya suchiram nirodha samajayata. When the Supreme desired to speak, speeches were vibrated from the mouth. Then the controlling deity fire was generated from the mouth. But when he was lying in the water, all these functions remained suspended. So, we've been talking about these senses a little bit. Yesterday, Chandanacharya was also talking on the mouth and the functions of the tongue, that it has two different functions, one of tasting and one of speaking. So it's a very important sense, and that's also confirmed in the fact that the two most important activities in devotional service that we practice are Shravanam and Kirtanam. So we hear and we chant. And of course there's no hearing without chanting, and there's no purpose of chanting without hearing. So these two senses work very closely together in tandem. And yes, so every day we're engaged in this kirtan in various different ways. We're chanting on our beads, we're chanting in the morning during kirtan and during Mangalarti. And then there's also chanting the Bhagavatam classes, discussing the all the pastimes, qualities, name, fame, form of the Lord and His devotees. And we're understanding the position that we are in this human form of life, and the importance of it, and the way to transcend this material world, get out of this cycle of birth and death, and go back to Godhead, where we can be eternally happy in association of the Lord and all of His devotees. So this whole aspect of the controlling deity fire being generated, and the Lord lying in the water and all these things, I'm not so learned in this, admittedly. But in the purport here, Prabhupada is discussing more about this aspect of the tongue and all the senses actually being controlled by the will of the Supreme, and in a roundabout way, I guess you could say, because there's demigods that are controlling all of the senses, and then through them, Krishna is acting. He's deputed these demigods to be the controllers of these various senses. And there's a couple different verses in Bhagavad Gita that refer to this. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridyashi arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yancharudhani mayaya, that Krishna is seated within everyone's heart, hridyashi arjuna tishtati, and he's directing the wanderings of all living entities. And those living entities are seated as if on a machine made of the material energy, yantra rudhani mayaya. So these bodies are like a machine, so to speak, that has been awarded to us based on our past activities. We've attained this rare human form of life, and it has some unique advantages that no other form of life has in this material world that we can take advantage of, and we'll discuss that later. But we have to understand that all of these senses and everything that's been awarded to us is, again, it's something that we have a license over. It's not that they are completely belonging to us. And this is described also in the Bhagavatam elsewhere, that we're simply the temporary inhabitants of these bodies. They're not who we are, and we have these license to use them in a certain way. And if we are breaking those rules and regulations and not using it in the way that it's been prescribed by Krishna, we will have negative reactions for that. Prabhupada's saying in here, the senses are, so to speak, offering a license for the conditioned souls, who are to use them properly under the control of the controlling deity deputed by the Supreme Lord. And then one who violates such controlling regulations has to be punished by degradation to a lower status of life. So when I read this, I was just thinking of a simple analogy of, it's not that everyone is born with the inherent right to drive a vehicle. It's something that we get a license for. We have to go through certain, tests and whatever. You get the written test, and then you go and have the actual driving test. And you have to be confirmed as being qualified to have that license. And then once you get that, it can also be taken away if you no longer follow the rules and regulations that you agreed to. If you're driving 150 miles an hour, you'll get pulled over and you'll get your license taken away, maybe permanently, maybe even go to jail. So there's serious consequences for moving outside of the regulations that you've agreed to within attaining that license. And it's a similar situation for us in the human body, that we have this body and it's got certain functions and certain ways that we can act in accordance to Shastra, in accordance to how the body is supposed to be used. And if we move outside of that, which is the situation now with 99% of people in the world, especially in the West, that everyone is just acting based on whatever they want with no idea of regulations or rules, or acting within a certain regulation for their senses. The negative repercussions and the bad karma accrued from such activity is almost immeasurable. And so, this, again, Prabhupada is mentioning that the tongue is meant for eating. And men, animals, and birds each have their different tastes because of different licenses. So every different species and every different living entity has a different kind of license. Like you have, again, the same analogy, like you have race car drivers. They have the ability to drive really fast, as fast as they possibly can. And it's completely legal and within the bounds of their license that they've been given. Whereas if we do that, again, we get in trouble. So each different living entity has different licenses for how they consume food and how they sustain themselves. So, we saw this video that Avadip Chandra Prabhu posted on Ashram Comms a couple days ago of a lion attacking these, like, were they antelope or something like that, or deer, some kind of animal like that. Yeah, with antlers. They were fighting, and then they were so absorbed in fighting each other that they didn't see this lion approaching them, and it came up and took one of them and killed it. So this lion has the license to act in such a way. And of course we know that animals don't accrue karma from their actions because they're acting based on instinct. But the body of a lion is meant to be eating other animals. It's meant to be the predator in that way. So it can't simply sustain itself off of blueberries and carrots or something like that. So, in a similar way, human beings have our own way that we can sustain ourselves, and the way that we can do that is by taking grains and fruits, vegetables, milk products, and all these things. We don't have any need to go and kill an animal to sustain ourselves. Whereas, again, the lion's body is designed for that, and that is its constitutional position to act in such a way. We don't have that, and we've been looking at some not so good things, not so great videos. At least Chandan pulled up one yesterday of all these McDonald's products, and you see the terrible quality of food that people are putting in their mouth these days, and it's almost on the same level of what the hogs eat. You could say it's pretty dang close to that. It's probably closer to that than it is to eating sattvic foodstuffs like we try to do here. So, what is the fate of such a person that is consuming such abominable foodstuffs on a daily basis? It's described pretty clearly here in Prabhupada's purport that these people have no discrimination in terms of what they're putting in their mouth, and their fate and their future is almost certain that they'll be degraded to lower forms of life in order that they can completely fulfill their desire to just eat whatever they like, even going so far as developing a taste for stool as a hog. Just a side note, I heard this story that my Guru Maharaj was speaking of his first time in Vrindavan. He was going, one of the strongest memories he has of that time, that first visit, was he was going on parikrama early in the morning, like during sunrise, and he walked by someone's house, and they had a balcony, I guess, and this boy came out, and he describes it, this boy gave him darshan of his backside, you could say. And so he passed over the balcony, and before that, though, my Guru Maharaj saw this hog, this pig ran up, and he knew every time the same day this happened. So the pig eagerly ran up and was wagging his tail or whatever, I guess, and looking very excited and looking up, and the stool fell on his face, and the hog was just in bliss. So, this is the status of a hog, and this is someone that will just eat anything and everything. This is the unfortunate fate that they are headed towards in their next life. The only difference between a human being like that and a hog is 1 or 2 lifetimes. In the future, he's going to be in that same status. So, really, there's no difference. And it's really crazy because, at least myself, I was definitely one of those people just eating anything and everything, whatever my tongue desired, I would just go get that and eat it. No discrimination, no idea of eating in the mode of goodness, or no idea of what prasadam was or anything like that. And then by the mercy of the devotees, I was lucky to come into the association of the devotees here, and they, kindly taught me the proper way that a human should act. And now, of course, having been doing this for a couple years, I can't possibly imagine doing such things again. It's really despicable. I just think about, we keep talking about this church's chicken and all this stuff too. Like, I was really thinking about that, meditating on it yesterday, like how nasty it is that, people will kill an animal, like kill a chicken, and then all the horrible things that you have to do, it's unspeakable, but to turn that body of a chicken into this, meat that you put on your plate is really horrible. And, whereas like the contrast of like picking a carrot out of the ground, or, Avadhu Chandra Prabhu is growing all these nice vegetables for the temple and for Krishna, that we pick these out and we, cut them up nicely and, spice them nicely and prepare them in all these different preparations with, different dairy products and such, and different grains, and prepare it in such nice combinations and then offer it to the Lord, and then, honor that prasadam. It's such a beautiful process and such a, in the mode of goodness, as I was saying, whereas this meat eating is so despicable and very dark and nasty and something that we don't want to think about, but everybody's just indiscriminately doing this with no idea of what they're actually doing and what they're putting in their mouth. They're not really thinking about it so deeply. Another anecdote of that is that I used to know someone that when they were probably like 7 or 8, I think, what they told me was that they're riding in the car on the highway, and they saw like one of these trucks that has the chickens in it. You've seen those? Like, it's got like, you can see like, I don't know, I guess you can see through it, right? It's like a chicken coops. Yeah, it's like cages. And so she saw that, and she just like started crying and like became a vegetarian. Like, she was like 7 years old, but like she decided not to eat meat anymore. But then, over time, over the years, as she grew older, because her family was a bunch of meat eaters, and the association was there, that determination to not eat meat went away, and she resumed eating meat, and to this day, hasn't gone back and reconsidered becoming a vegetarian. So it's easy for like for us to see the abominability of eating such things, but then through bad association we can easily fall back into doing so. I've experienced that myself. I tried to be vegetarian. I was vegetarian for a couple of years, and then I started hanging out with meat eaters again, and then I started eating meat again. But again, like I said, luckily here, it's you have more conviction because you develop a higher taste and you have more principles of why you're not doing this activity anymore. Before it was just based on, I didn't really have any strong reason for why I did it, why I became vegetarian. Some sort of like compassion for animals or whatever was there, some on the mundane level, but now it's much more firmly rooted in conviction, and of course we take vows that we won't do such things anymore. So this is the platform that all humans should come to. We shouldn't accept living a life with indiscriminate taste and just going wherever our tongue directs us. We become just a complete slave to the tongue and a servant of the tongue. And this is a very low state to be in because, again, this is available in all the animal forms of life, this same level of sense gratification. Labdva sudra lapamidam bahu sambhavante manusham artata manityam api harira turnam yateta napateda namrityu yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalasarvatasyat. That this human form of life is very rare, and having obtained it, one should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection. After all, the sense gratification is available even amongst the lower species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is available only to a human being. It's only possible in this human form of life. So we should rise above this animalistic tendency and engage in Krishna consciousness in order to perfect our lives. These levels of sense gratification, again, the hog is eagerly enjoying eating the stool just as much as the average American is enjoying eating a Big Mac. It's the same level of enjoyment. They're enjoying having sex as well. It's all the same. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. they're enjoying these things on the same exact level. It's no different at all. It also reminds me of the first book I read when I came and joined I didn't read any of Prabhupada's books before I joined. I read maybe like half a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita years ago. So then I came and I joined, and they gave me this book, Spiritual Yoga. And I remember I came and I stayed for like a week, and then I had this planned family vacation that we went to a lake on the weekend. So I went and did that, and I brought that book with me. And I remember reading it, it's don't be like hogs and dogs, and saying the very first page is talking about that, and it's like really heavy, and like it's about the teachings of King Rishabdev, Lord Rishabdev, to his sons, and he's saying endeavor for this spiritual perfection in life and use your human life in the proper way, and that really hit me because I was having direct experience and perception of my family who is living like hogs and dogs and who is doing all these things that is being spoken against in these books. And so it was a very practical experience for me. I had made the determination to come back, but I just solidified that determination already, that was already there, that there is nothing for me out there in this material world, that I've been completely frustrated in my attempts for material enjoyment, and what these books are saying makes sense. What everyone here at Krishna Life is saying, it makes complete sense to me, and they seem very happy, and I should follow through and see what this process is like, see if this process really works, test it for myself in a scientific way. And it's definitely paid off, you could say. It's definitely been the right decision. So in order to do this, in order to transcend this whole idea of indiscriminately eating whatever there is and just being controlled by our tongues, we have to develop a higher taste. This 259 Bhagavad Gita you can pull up. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasa varjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. I need to learn this one, memorize it. But the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So this is kind of, again, what I was saying earlier, that I attempted to be a vegetarian for some time, and then, it's like I was restricted from that's so-called sense enjoyment, but the taste for doing such abominable activities still remained within. But by coming here and experiencing this higher taste, this param drishtva, you cease from all these lower things, and you become fixed in proper consciousness and able to progress in spiritual life properly. So, let's see, I had some other things. The other kind of point being made here is that, just generally talking about the tongue and how it's used. So, that's kind of explaining how it's, on the level of taste, how we can develop higher taste. Of course, like I said, we only take Krishna Prasadam, and by doing that, we completely eradicate any taste for taking non-Krishna Prasadam. I'm sure everybody here can agree that, like, if someone put a plate of non-prasadam in front of you, you would be completely, averse to taking it in every way. Something made by non-devotees. And because we also understand that it's been coming up over and over again as well, this, what is this? The Karmic Grains verse, what does it start with? Do you know? It starts with a V. Huh? No. The Karmic Grains verse that we've been talking about over and over again. I had it, and then of course I forgot it now. Let me see. Here we go. Yeah, Vishaya anakale malinahaiman malinaman haile nahi Krishna smaran. That by eating foodstuffs cooked by non-devotees, Krishna smaran, that we're not able to remember Krishna, and we lose that ability. So it's more than just the idea of satisfying our tongue in this way or that way. It's a higher principle at hand, that we are only taking Krishna Prasadam not only because Krishna has enjoyed it first and he is the enjoyer and we are the secondary, we are the enjoyed, and that by like Krishna, Chandanacharya Prabhu was mentioning yesterday, these prasadam prayers that we say, Krishna Bharadaya Moy Kari Bari Jiva Joy, that we're by his mercy we're able to enjoy this Krishna Prasadam and satisfy our stomachs in that way. And it's of course also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita that those who offer foodstuffs and sacrifice, they eradicate their karma, their sins, and then those who eat only for the satisfaction of the tongue, they eat only sin. So not only is that there, but also we are able to remember Krishna by taking this prasadam. So it's a very transcendental process, and it's not on the mundane platform in any way. But the other thing I wanted to mention was that this tongue is important for two things, like Chandanacharya Prabhu was mentioning yesterday, that tasting and speaking. And when we are just tasting without discrimination, we will also fall into the habit of speaking without discrimination. And it's also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita that, again, I don't know where, sorry, maybe someone could pull it up. I think you might know it, Avadut Chandra Prabhu, that this part of the divine and demoniac quality is that those that have the divine qualities, that they're silent. Where is that?
The Bhagavad Gita?
I think so, right?
I mean, you can look in the 16th chapter, it's probably there.
Yeah, anyways, if someone could find that. But yeah, just the point that, those with divine qualities, they're silent. And it's not that they are silent like a Buddhist that takes the vow of silence and doesn't speak anything. They're silent in terms of mundane topics. So they don't discuss anything mundane. They're simply always engaged in the chanting of the glories of the Lord and his devotees. Always relating whatever they're speaking to the Bhagavatam in some way or the other. Speaking of, this philosophy of, that those who eat indiscriminately are headed towards the life of hogs. It might not be so relishable to hear to the ear, but it is very important to hear. It's like Shukadeva Goswami, when he first speaks in the Bhagavatam, he's saying that, men are just engaged in, sleeping at night or having sex and sleeping at night and working like hogs during the day, just losing their blood in this way and that way and just acting like animals, So this is one of the most important teachings of the Bhagavatam, is that we have to get off of this animal platform and come to the level of Krishna consciousness. And the human platform, we have to start by coming to the human platform and ceasing from engaging in all these sinful activities that, as Westerners, at least myself, was completely, fully absorbed in. And, even in terms of, pious activity, even in that way, even if, we're not eating indiscriminately, we're in the mode of goodness and so on and so forth, the person engaged in pious activity is still headed for this cycle of repeated birth and death, samsara, that we're in. Unless they are focused on developing Krishna consciousness, unless they're focused on transcending these three modes of material nature, they have no chance of getting out of this cycle. So it's almost, on the same platform, or it could even be considered that it is on the same platform, that these, completely sinful rascals that are just doing this and that, and, they're mostly just in complete ignorance of how sinful they're being. And those that are, using the Vedas in a way to simply increase their sense gratification. The commonality between both of them is that they are focused on sense gratification. And the latter person that I described may be doing it in a more sophisticated way. And yes, they're engaged in pious activities. That's, better than just being completely sinful. But because they are not surrendered to Krishna, because they are not completely absorbed in trying to become Krishna conscious and trying to get rid of this mentality of being the enjoyer, they are doomed in a way, you could say, that they're going to have to continue on in this cycle of birth and death indefinitely. And even if you're in the body of a demigod, what's the use? Because again, it's all temporary. It's all a very tiny little flicker in the breadth of eternity. It's even like 10 trillion years. It's simply a finger snap in terms of eternity. And we have to go through this cycle of birth and death. So the real point is we have to get out of this. And Prabhupada's really hammering at the end of this, the end of the purport, that after death, the next body is offered by superior control, not blindly. So superior control being Krishna himself, and the demigods award it based on the person's activities. A human being must therefore be on his guard as to what sort of body he is going to have in the next life. And again, this Labdva Sudurlabham verse that I mentioned, that human form of life is very, very rare, and we're at a crossroads. You could say that we can either just completely engage in gratifying our senses, think that this life is all in all, and just engage in whatever activity we desire with no regard to whether it's sinful or okay or it's good, or if it's making us more detached from material life or making us more attached. With no discrimination, we can head in that direction and therefore head towards animal life, or we can head in the direction of trying to give up these propensities and trying to surrender to Krishna, associating with the devotees and engaging in all these different processes. And through doing so, we can ensure that the body we have in the next life isn't a material body and isn't subject to these four birth, death, old age, and disease. These four things that we don't want to be subject to anymore. This Savai Mana Krishna Padar Vindayor Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunan Varnane Karo Harir Mandira Marjanari Shutim Chakarachuta Satkatoriye. That this is Maharaj Ambarish praying that, or this is a description of Maharaj Ambarish, that he was always engaging all of his senses in the worship of the Lord. And this, what is it? Savai Mana Krishna Padar Vindayor. So his mind in worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunana. So Vachamsi is words, and Vaikunta Gunana Varnane, that word, his words in describing the glories of the Lord and Vaikunta. So and it goes on to explain all these, his tongue in tasting the tulasi leaves and all these different things. But the important point here is that his words are engaged. Like I was saying before, we have our tongue can taste, Krishna Prasadam, and our tongue can also speak about Krishna and engage in kirtan. And by thus engaging in kirtan, we can engage in shravan, because there has to be a speaker to be a hearer. And so by doing this, we can completely get out of this whole cycle and go back to Godhead, reinstitute our constitutional position. And again, Prabhupada's saying that we have to think about what kind of body we want to have in the next life. And I was just kind of thinking about that, meditating on that the proper mood, of course, is that we don't desire liberation necessarily. We don't want to, ask Krishna for liberation. But I was thinking that, it would be really nice if I could have the desire, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes it. He, isn't desirous, I don't know the exact wording, but he's not desirous of liberation, but he just prays that at least in his next life, let him just be in the association of devotees in some way, even if he's just a bug in the house of a devotee. Just to have the association of devotees in some way or the other is the ultimate perfection of life. And no matter what form of life we end up in, we can try to cultivate the consciousness and the desire that we can continue on in the association of devotees in some way or the other. And I was just thinking that, I'd really would love to have that desire in my heart. I don't have that there, but, it would be nice to get to that platform, get to that level that, I'm just want to, serve the Lord in whatever way I'm needed, and be around other devotees that are in the same mindset, same consciousness. And I was thinking that these material bodies are a big impediment can be there in terms of our service. As we grow older and older, that our energy levels go down, and health problems come up, and this arm doesn't work the same way it used to, or whatever it is. You can't lift as much, or you get some illness that you have to deal with. You're more tired. All these things. You can't focus as much. Your memory goes away. So many things that the body just begins to degrade over time. And I mean, I'm relatively not that old, but compared to how I used to be, I'm starting to feel it a little bit. And I was just thinking about this yesterday when I was just preparing for this, that, I go on TSKP for like a few days, and it's good. Like, I'm not like so tired from it, but it is draining. It is quite a lot of energy you're expelling when you're doing that. And then I was just thinking about comparing myself to like Bhakti Jacob, that he's out there like 19, and he just like seems like he's always like full of energy. Like, he could just go on TSKP for like 2 years straight and like no problem, like eat just khichdi once a day or whatever. So he's always fired up in the way. Yeah, you can knock out when you knock out too, but like you can have a big nap too. But overall, you have that youthful energy, that exuberance that that you can just like go and just do these things. But I was just thinking that it'd be nice to have a body that isn't degrading like this and isn't doing that, so that we can engage in service more fully and just not have to sleep so much, not have to like always be maintaining our body in this way and that way, but to have a body that's more properly suited to engaging fully in Krishna consciousness. Of course, the more Krishna conscious we become, the more our body becomes suitable for that. We spiritualize our body in that way. Srila Prabhupada himself, his body was completely transcendental, not material in any way, and he only slept for a couple of hours at night. And other than that, he was completely engaged 24/7, doing so many things. I mean, managing a worldwide movement, and writing his books, staying up late at night writing his books, and waking up early in the morning writing his books, doing things that we couldn't dream of doing ourselves. He's on a completely other platform, of course, but just the general idea, I was just thinking of that. It'd be nice to have a body that's more suitable for engaging more, what you could say, like intensely, I guess, in devotional service. Speaking of Srila Prabhupada, I had another thought in regards to this, that, in terms of the tongue and the power of the tongue, that, it's, yes, it's, if we're not controlling our senses, the tongue is dragging us here and there, and we're also engaging in all kinds of nonsensical talk. But, you can also see, even just on the mundane platform, what to speak of the transcendental platform, that the tongue is extremely powerful in terms of its ability to speak and change the world in that way. You see like so many leaders come about, and they just come about just by being really good orators, and they're really good at speaking, and they can make a whole country or a whole whatever, a whole nation come together under one idea, and unite in that way. You saw like obviously like Abraham Lincoln or someone like that, united the North, and fought the Civil War and all these things. And like Hitler, he brought this whole country together and then made them think that they're going to conquer the whole world, and convinced them, kill all these people, a horrible thing. So just the power of words alone. But then, you think of someone like Srila Prabhupada, who's on such a higher level, like he's on the completely transcendental platform, and his words are, so powerful that he completely conquered the whole world. He conquered the whole world. He didn't have to use violence or anything like that, like all these other people do. But he can be, it's obvious that he conquered the whole world. He, by himself, again, he was a one-man army, and he came and he faced off against Maya herself, and just, against this demoniac Western civilization. And he converted these people who are the most, sinful, most degraded people in the whole society that was already such a degraded society that even the, people that were considered more high class in that degraded society saw these people as extremely low class and degraded. So, these hippie people that were just out, in the streets, just having sex with each other and doing whatever, taking drugs, constantly being completely, out of their mind on drugs. And he converted them into Krishna conscious devotees, that are, so many of them practiced for their whole life and are still practicing to this day. And, they completely changed their ways in so many ways. And, I pray that I'm able to continue to follow as well. But, I've given up a lot of sinful activities I used to engage in, and at least I'm not grossly engaging in them anymore at the time being. So, and I pray that I can continue in that way. But it's just completely Prabhupada's mercy that, we're able to do this. And, he conquered the world then, and he continues to conquer it now, as we distribute his books all over the country, and, soon all over the world. Every country will be, filled with book distributors, and we'll have hundreds and thousands of them all over the place. And, Prabhupada will just continue to take over the world in that way. Again, with no violence, no, just simply with the power of words, with the power of the tongue. His ability to speak Krishna conscious philosophy was on such a high level that he's able to conquer the world simply with his words. And so I found that really amazing. I was just kind of contemplating on that. I don't think I have anything much else to say. So if there's any questions or comments, we can open up for now. Corrections. I don't know if Mahotsa Prabhu was listening. No, he didn't call me. I was going to see if he called. Avadu Chandra Prabhu, you have anything?
Thank you, Prabhu. That verse you were referring to about one who's always silent, Jacob, you can pull this up. This is in the 12th chapter of the Gita. We were chanting this during the marathon.
Right.
12:18 through 19. That description it's in the translation. Go to the English. Yeah, that's where it is. Right. I mean, there's several references to this sort of thing in the Gita about speaking words that are pleasing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
thank you for that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the points you were making. I mean, like, for a devotee, they just desire to, like you're saying, your body, you're a certain age now, but as you progress, things are just going downhill. Mm-hmm. And I was reading this morning that Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, a materialist, they just want to gain and earn more and more money. They become like multimillionaires. Mm-hmm. But the desire of a devotee, they have a similar mentality, but they just want to do more service. And Prabhupada was describing, then they actually become more and more liberated by being attached to their service.
That's amazing, yeah. And
I was also thinking about just the descriptions you were speaking about in the beginning about nonviolence and like, the animal cruelty and whatnot, and like the Krishna conscious philosophy is so powerful. I mean, we hear those things when we join about, you kill a cow, you have to take as many birds as there are hairs on the animal of that body. Mm-hmm. It's just so profound. And I mean, if you ignore that, it's just like, you're going to be a hog in Vrindavan getting stool on your face. That was a nice memory. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I was talking to Mahotsa Prabhu the other day. He was saying that, we're past the point of being able to go back to that, what we used to do. Basically, like, there's no way, like, even if we did go engage in those activities we used to, like, there would be no taste there, and, like, it would be completely horrible, because it's like, when you're doing it before, you don't necessarily think of so much how bad it is, but now, like, we know, like you're saying, like, we know the results of these sinful activities. So it's like, we can't possibly, like, live with that, Sure, like, any, like, Maya can come in and, like, cover us in these ways, but, like, in the back of our mind, we'll always remember, like, it said that, you know, you can't forget what you've experienced once you've tasted Krishna consciousness a little bit. Like, you can never like unsee what you've seen, basically. You know, so it's we're the only. Oh yeah, a phrase that I was meditating on was that the only way out is through. You've heard of that?
No.
Like, there's this idea that, like, you know, the only way, like, you can't turn back, you know, like, you have to continue going. And, like, the only way out of this, you can't, like, go to the side and just, like, the only way to get out of the situation is, like, to go through, and, like, we have to just become pure devotees, go all the way through and just make it, you know, make it out the other side. It's like we're in a cave and then, you know, it just got caved in. Like, the way we came in was caved in. So now the only way out is to get to the other side of the cave or whatever. So, yeah.
This is a comment. You're talking about how basically just in society it's hard to be vegetarian, and there's so much nonsense in this association of persons who just eat absolutely anything. And me and Jacob and I were talking last night just about all like the weird things people eat and drink. People will eat absolutely anything.
Yeah.
With the exception of a few kinds of bodily substances. But they get born as a hog or dog, they'll even eat that.
Yeah.
I can recount from my own life. I was vegetarian. You were talking about someone who was young, they saw like chickens. I went through a similar sort of thing. My mom showed me this movie when I was a kid, and then I like was vegetarian for a year. And then I was vegan a few times after that, but I always went back to eating meat. And it's because I had bad association, and I had cousins and uncles who lived in the country, and they all go hunting, and I was like, I would hang out with them, and it's like there's this false idea of being a man, of what a man is and what manhood is. People think being a man's all about growing hair on your chest and drinking black coffee and like sitting in armchairs smoking cigarettes, and what else?
Eating meat.
You know, yeah, doing the most gnarly things, like eating whatever. Yeah, drinking beer is a big one.
Oh, yeah.
What did you say?
Casino.
Going to the casino. Yeah, being a man and, sorry?
What did you say?
Yeah, working out.
Working out, being jacked.
Yeah, it's just this completely misconstrued idea of what being a man is. But I mean, ideally a man should be just a responsible, honest, sober person. And being vegetarian is kind of condemned, at least in that social sphere of like, you know, the really like country pride, redneck sort of people.
Yeah.
Like you just be a man and go hunting and eat your meat. I grew up around that a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then being vegetarian sort of seen as like being some guy who just like grows out his hair and hangs out with feminists and like plays guitar and talks about his feelings all day.
It's like liberal kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But being a man is, you know, actually about being responsible and honest, and yeah, there's gravity in that, and just being sober. Anyways, just a little side point about how being a man, like people have just crazy ideas of what being a man is.
Yeah. They think being a man is actually what being an animal is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else from the mid? Matajis, have anything? No? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.